Welcome to Matters of Decorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. Sorry about the voice. I've got a bit of a cold. I'll try not to let it get in the way too much. I'm probably going to cough a little bit during the video. I'll try to keep it to a minimum. The movie's going well. I'm in Cerritos. I'm going to be in Cerritos. This is just where I live now. Anna and Drew they're still commuting back and forth, sometimes here, sometimes there. It's going to be a while everything gets transferred over and things happen, and moving's a mess, but I feel better being here. I'm more independent here. I can get out the door and go for a roll around, go down the street. I can make it to my own dialysis clinic from my front door. I just roll 15 minutes down the street, a couple of blocks down, past 5 really good coffee shops on the way. It's a good place. I'm very fortunate that everything has worked out to the way it has. So before I get into today's video, in Star Trek Nemesis, one of my least favorite Star Trek movies, by the way, not just because, okay, spoilers for Star Trek Nemesis, a 10-year-old movie. Not just the fact that they kill Data off in the movie, which, that's not a character you should have ever killed off. But the Romulans cloned Jean-Luc Picard. And the clone turns around and betrays them. And not once did anyone say that the Romulans were hoisted by their own Picard. Is it just me, or is that one of the great missed opportunities? Probably just me. A few weeks ago, I talked about work I'm doing for an upcoming convention. I'm going to be running some victory characters through adventures at Anime LA in January. And I said I'd do something like crazy, like put together 12 characters in a week. That didn't happen. What I do have is the artwork for the 12 characters, which I figure I'd share today. The artwork isn't all of the characters, because the artwork also incorporates the character's concept to a certain degree. They fit within a fairly simple description, elven gunfighter. And so there are 6 character types that are presented in 2 different characters, mostly for gender choice. But I'm not just going to copy and paste the characters over. It's not just going to be 2 identical characters with the names and pictures swapped. Not when I had the opportunity to introduce little variations or different paths, different background careers, things that these people could have been doing aside from their mainstream gunfighter, soldier, mage, what have you. And that can make it interesting when people select the same character concept, but there's enough difference that they can play off of each other. There's no limit to how many of these characters could be selected to go in the same party, up to 12. And like I said, I'll be showing up to all 4 sessions. 4 sessions? I'm running 4 sessions. I can show up to all 4 sessions with all 12 characters ready to go. There's going to be 6 slots at the table. I'll run 12 people. I've done it before. I'll do it again. And I might not be at my full health and my full fighting mettle, but this is when I need to go back to my roots and let the dynamics of the table handle themselves for a while. That being said, the characters that I'm kind of proud of the artwork, so I figured I would share. In no particular order, the Elven Gunfighter. I like the concept of a good old-fashioned Tolkien elf. You got that accuracy and that ancient battle prowess. Uh, and at the same time, you factor in some of that gunfighter mystique, that, come back Shane, high noon, gunfight at the OK Corral sort of thing. And you mix those together, and the result should be nothing short of terrifying. Give these folks a few magic spells, some arcane lore and wisdom, and, well, the ability to engage in some fisticuffs if the gun itself is not called for. Everyone's going to be able to fight in a number of different ways. That doesn't necessarily mean that fights are destined to happen. That's really up to the party and how they choose to handle things. I'd be fascinated to see one of these games go off with zero combat happening. But again, not up to me. The Dwarven Soldier might be a little bit of a stereotype. You get the dwarf, where you think the axe, the armor, the martial traditions. They're not a cleric of Moradin, but they're the dwarf. So I got to mix that up too. Maybe not make them the stereotypical earth hewing, fire spewing, hammer wielding blacksmith with a grudge kind of dwarf, but put a little softer edge on some of the crafting skills and the lores and traditions. Maybe these aren't mountain dwarves. Maybe these are folks from the hills, or maybe these are some of those coastal dwarves. What do coastal dwarf be like? That question is interesting enough to me that I might just have to do that. The gnomish duelist. Having someone who is a professional duelist suggests a dueling society, even a dueling guild, that there are strictly codified rules to how duels are done, who can and cannot challenge someone to a duel, how you respond to that challenge, what the various different challenges mean, how far you can take things, when you can step in for someone else, and when someone has to fight their own fights. A gnome duelist, I like gnomes for this because, again, there's a lot of stereotypes from D&D and different ways that these characters and races are perceived. I like gnomes having an eye for precision. That seems like that could very easily be a genetic thing. And that eye for precision and that workman-like kind of knuckle down and get the job done. When you're talking about a professional duelist, that starts to be something interesting and frightening. And that low center of gravity, and if they're fighting folks that are the human sized or taller, that starts to be a real problem for the big guy, because the short guy has reach with a weapon and he can get to all kinds of things you can't get to on him. Halfling martial artist. Again, there's a lot of history that goes along with this and the way that halflings are usually perceived. Good old Tolkien, and halflings have this tendency to be overlooked, so they make excellent sneak thieves and burglars. Wow, that's not a terribly complimentary stereotype at all. But Gandalf wasn't wrong, I guess. Bilbo seemed to be perfectly happy with the role of burglar, and he pulled that off well. Having the ring helped, no small amount, of course, but even when dealing with just the goblins, people tended to overlook Bilbo. People tend to overlook the halflings. And when the halfling can punch through a brick wall and fight off 10 people all at once with their hands and feet without breaking out a sweat, that's a bad thing to overlook. That's the kind of thing you do not survive overlooking. Your ninja halfling is going to be someone relatively difficult to deal with, and maybe they just learned a little self defense and kept up the practices, but they're just out there to find a good meal, maybe a nice home. Maybe they're looking for another thing that they can do with their life because beating people up, it just doesn't seem very, you know, hospitable. Human fighter. There's a stereotype. And I don't mind it too much. The nice basic core, here's your person who knows a whole bunch of martial skills, can handle a whole bunch of different weapons, is very good with them, can take some hits, is very physically resistant, and that's not 100% interesting. Maybe I need to throw a little something in there. It wouldn't hurt if one or more of the human fighters was, say, a psionicist or had a couple of extra martial skills under their belt. Maybe they know a little magic to help things get by. Some little magics just to make things easier. When the gruff and rumble tumble fighter gets to the end of the day and they're just too tired to want to deal too much with setting up camp, and they haphazardly toss the kindling into the middle of the fire and light it with the snap of their fingers. Now everyone's eyebrow goes up, and the fighter's a little more interesting. And then I've got a lot of martial types, and I've got range and up close covered, but I don't have a lot of esoteric skills. So the mage, Pixie mage, because a mage is a force multiplier. A mage can, and that's a really varied kind of thing. Healing mage, combat mage, movement mage. Are they evokers? Do they work with fire or one of the other elements? What kind of mage are they? That's a big, broad category. So these are obviously going to be two very different kinds of mages. And the skill sets that they bring to that, probably two different skill sets. Your person who has studied fire magic probably knows a few things about fire, physics, survival, uh, ways to survive a fiery situation or fight fires. Whereas your healer is going to know more medicine and herbalism and be able to supplement their magical ability to heal wounds with the ability to bandage things correctly just in case stuff goes wrong. There isn't a dedicated healer yet. Healing's expensive in the victory system though, so if there is a healer, it's probably going to be one of the mages, and they're probably going to be kind of dedicated to it. And that's a party. As parties go, little combat heavy, but the personalities are all going to be a little different. They're going to come from different walks of life. They're going to have different viewpoints on things. And putting two different characters that fall under the same general description in front of two different players and seeing the different paths that they take, and there's going to be some similarities. They're probably going to have the same attack rolls, which for one game master running this makes it a little bit easier for me to remember those numbers. But maybe their investigation skills are different. Maybe they look at things differently or communicate differently. Maybe one of them has a hard time with fighting at night. Just some old fears that haven't gone away yet. with good reason. The night is terrifying. Or maybe they're a little bit too arrogant for their own good, and maybe they've been sent away by their family until that ship gets knocked off their shoulder. All of these things are something that will either come out or not. These are 4-hour con games, so it's not going to be a campaign where I can give the spotlight to everyone to have an episode of their own to resolve all plot issues. But if someone shows up to my table, kicks up one of these characters, and wants to plumb out everything they can about that character's history and personality, they want to write a little backstory and make the character a little bit of theirs. Once you pick up one of these characters at my table, you're walking home with it. That's your character. I'd like to see what happens to them over time. I might have enough time to put together a website so that people can check in from time to time, talk about the character they've got, share some things about them. That'd be kind of fun. Have some Discord server. Let me know if you'd be interested in seeing something like that. I might be interested in doing it. I'm going to need a lot of Adderall. It's going to be a month, folks. It's going to be an absolute month. In the meantime, thank you very much for following me along on this particular congested ramble. I'm Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me. I will see you next time on the next Matters at DeCorum. And now, over to Uncle Drac for the outro. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy this video, give it a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. If there's any other topics you would like to hear Scott talk about, questions you'd like him to answer, subjects you'd like him to cover, please leave a comment down below. He will love getting your comment, and you will love leaving him one. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, why not? This channel is awesome. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you do, you might also want to hit the little notification bell so you're alerted when these videos become available. If you would like to support this channel in a more substantial manner, we invite you to hit us up at the Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum. And consider donating. Absolutely anything helps and allows us to create better content more often. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.